What if depression doesn't look the way you were taught it looks? What if it isn't crying on the bathroom floor? What if it isn't canceling plans every night? What if it's answering emails, showing up to meetings, laughing at jokes in the break room, posting normal photos, yeah, and still feeling like something inside you is quietly fading? Not crashing, not collapsing, just dimming. What if you don't look depressed, but you don't feel fully alive either? That's the version almost nobody talks about. And it's the one that slips through the cracks. Most people miss the early signs because they don't match the stereotype. You're functioning, you're productive, you're responsible. So, how bad could it be? Today, we're talking about the version of depression that hides in plain sight, the kind that gets praised for being strong, the kind that gets labeled just stress, the kind that even the person experiencing it struggles to name. And as we go through this, you might recognize more than you expect. When people hear the word depression, they picture someone who can't get out of bed. But many people with depression do get out of bed. They shower, they drive, they respond, they meet deadlines, they show up for other people. From the outside, nothing seems wrong. But internally, everything feels heavier than it should. Not dramatic, not catastrophic, just heavier. Like gravity quietly increased by 5%, and nobody else noticed. 1. You're always tired, even when you've rested. This isn't "I stayed up too late." This isn't "I've had a busy week." This is a tiredness that sleep doesn't fix. You wake up after 8 hours and still feel like you ran a marathon in your sleep. You drink coffee, you stretch, you try to reset, but the exhaustion feels cellular, like your energy system never fully recharges. Here's what many people don't realize: depression doesn't just affect mood, it affects the brain systems responsible for motivation, energy regulation, and reward. Neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine, which help you feel drive and alertness, can become dysregulated. So even if your body rests, your mind doesn't fully reset. It's like plugging your phone in overnight, but the battery only reaches 40%. And over time, this does something dangerous. You stop trusting your own energy. You start questioning yourself. Why am I so weak? Why can't I just push through this? Other people handle more than I do. So you try harder. You override the fatigue, you perform competence, and the internal drain continues. 2. Things you used to enjoy don't feel the same. You still go, you still show up, you still watch your favorite shows, you still meet friends, you still do the hobby. But something is missing. The spark isn't there. The anticipation isn't there. The emotional payoff feels muted. Psychologists call this anhedonia, the reduced ability to feel pleasure. But in real life, it doesn't feel clinical. It feels subtle. It feels like, I know I'm supposed to enjoy this. Why doesn't this feel like it used to? Why does everything feel kind of neutral? It's like the volume of pleasure got turned down. Not off, just lowered enough that nothing feels deeply satisfying. You laugh, but it's shallow. You smile, but it fades quickly. You finish something, but there's no sense of reward. And because you're still participating, no one notices, including you. You might tell yourself, maybe I'm just bored. Maybe I've outgrown it. Maybe I need something new. But when nothing feels new enough, the pattern starts revealing itself. 3. You don't feel sad. You feel flat. This is the part that confuses people the most. Because depression isn't always intense sadness, often it's emotional numbness. You're not crying, you're not breaking down, you're just neutral. The highs aren't very high, the lows aren't very low. The emotional color drains from the world. And living in emotional gray is exhausting in its own way. Because humans are wired for contrast, we're built to feel. So when your emotional range shrinks, life feels distant, muted. You watch something that should move you and it barely registers. You hear good news and it doesn't land. You sit alone and there's no dramatic sadness, just emptiness. And emptiness is hard to explain. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't look urgent. It doesn't scare people. But over time, it erodes meaning. 4. You're functioning, but it feels mechanical. This might be the clearest sign. You go to work. You respond to texts. You attend events. You complete tasks. You do everything you're supposed to do. But internally, it feels like you're reading lines from a script, like you're playing the role of yourself. There's a subtle disconnect between what you're doing and how you feel about doing it. You say the right things, you nod at the right moments, you hit your deadlines, but it doesn't feel embodied. It feels performed. And that quiet disconnect drains meaning from everyday life. Because meaning doesn't come from action alone, it comes from emotional engagement. When that engagement fades, life starts to feel transactional, automatic, mechanical. And the scariest part, you might become very good at hiding it. High functioning depression often looks like reliability. It looks like competence. It looks like strength. But inside, something feels dimmer than it used to. If any of this feels familiar, don't click away. Because in part 2, we're going deeper. We're talking about the signs that get mislabeled as personality flaws, the ones people call lazy, unmotivated, too sensitive, overthinking. When in reality, they might be quiet signals your nervous system has been under strain for a long time. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. What if your irritability isn't a bad attitude? What if your procrastination isn't laziness? What if pulling away from people isn't you being antisocial but overwhelmed? What if the traits you've been criticizing in yourself are actually signals? Signals that your system is stretched too thin. Let's talk about the signs that don't get enough attention, the ones that don't look like classic depression, the ones that get mislabeled, the ones that make people say, you just need to try harder. But trying harder isn't the problem. 5. You're more irritable than usual. You don't feel sad, you feel annoyed. Small things set you off. Someone chewing too loudly. An email that feels slightly demanding. A minor inconvenience that suddenly feels huge. Your tolerance shrinks. Your fuse gets shorter. And when you snap, even a little, you immediately feel guilty. Why am I like this? That was such an overreaction. I'm becoming difficult. But here's what's really happening. When your emotional system is overloaded, it doesn't always shut down quietly. Sometimes it becomes reactive. Depression can reduce your emotional bandwidth. And when bandwidth is low, even normal stimulation feels overwhelming. Noise feels sharper, people feel heavier, conversations feel demanding. You're not becoming a worse person. You're running low internally. Irritability isn't always aggression. Sometimes it's depletion. 6. You're isolating yourself. You cancel plans. You delay responding to messages. You scroll instead of calling back. You tell yourself, I just need some alone time. And yes, alone time can be healthy. But this feels different. This isn't restorative solitude. This is heavy withdrawal. You want connection. You miss connection. But the effort feels enormous. You start thinking, they deserve better energy than this. I don't want to bring the mood down. I'll go next time. But next time keeps moving further away. And slowly, your world gets smaller. Not because you don't care, but because caring feels expensive. Social interaction requires energy. Reading cues, responding emotionally, staying present. When your system is already drained, even people you love can feel like work. And then isolation feeds the depression. Less connection, less emotional stimulation, less positive feedback. The loop tightens. 7. Your inner voice is harsher. This one often goes unnoticed because it sounds normal. You replay small mistakes in your head. You assume people noticed what you said wrong. You imagine conversations that didn't even happen. You focus more on what you're doing wrong than what you're doing right. And here's the tricky part. Depression doesn't create new thoughts out of nowhere. It shifts your lens. It makes negative interpretations feel more believable. It amplifies self-doubt. That critical voice gets louder, and the compassionate voice gets quieter. You should be doing more. You're falling behind. Other people have it worse. Why can't you handle this? And the longer you hear it, the more it feels like objective truth. But it isn't. It's a brain state. When mood shifts, Cognition shifts. Your mind starts scanning for evidence that confirms the low mood. So, even neutral events get interpreted negatively. Someone replies late. They're annoyed with me. You forget something small. I'm losing it. That inner critic isn't clarity, it's distortion. But when you live with it long enough, it feels real. 8. You can't focus like you used to. You read the same paragraph 3 times. You open a tab and forget why. You start a task and your brain drifts. You feel foggy, slower, less sharp, and that part can be scary. You might question your intelligence. Why am I struggling with something that used to be easy? Am I just distracted? Am I getting lazy? But depression doesn't just affect emotions, it affects cognition. Your brain is constantly managing your internal state, regulating mood, monitoring stress, processing subtle emotional tension. That takes energy, energy that would normally go toward focus, memory, and clarity. So, concentration drops, working memory weakens, decision making feels heavier. It's not that you're less capable, it's that your mental resources are being used elsewhere. And the frustration that comes with brain fog often makes the cycle worse. You try harder, you get more tired. You judge yourself. Focus drops further. Another loop? 9. Your sleep feels off. Maybe you're sleeping more than usual. Staying in bed feels safer than being awake. Or maybe you wake up at 3 a.m., mind racing. Or maybe you're exhausted but wired at the same time. Your body feels tired. Your brain feels alert. Depression disrupts circadian rhythms. Mood and sleep are deeply connected. When one shifts, the other usually follows. And poor sleep intensifies everything. Irritability increases, focus drops, emotional regulation weakens. So even mild depressive symptoms can feel amplified when sleep is unstable. It becomes a feedback loop. Low mood disrupts sleep. Disrupted sleep lowers mood, round and round. Here's something important. You don't need every sign on this list to be struggling. Depression isn't one size fits all. It exists on a spectrum. Some people collapse outwardly, others stay functional, even high performing. There's something often called high functioning depression. You meet deadlines, you show up, you keep going. People describe you as reliable, strong, independent. And maybe you are. But strength doesn't cancel out struggle. You can be capable and hurting at the same time. You can be productive and depleted. You can look okay and still be fighting something quietly. So, how do you know when this is more than just a rough week? Everyone has off days. Everyone gets stressed. Everyone feels tired sometimes. But depression isn't just intensity, it's duration, it's pattern, it's persistence. It's when the heaviness doesn't lift, even when circumstances improve. Here are the signs you shouldn't ignore. Not because they mean something is wrong with you, but because they mean you deserve attention and care. 10. You feel hopeless about the future. This one is quieter than people expect. It's not dramatic despair. It's not crying on the floor saying everything is ruined. It's subtler than that. It's a slow fading of expectation. You stop imagining things getting better. You stop picturing future milestones. You stop making plans, not because you're busy, but because planning feels pointless. You start thinking, this is just how it is. This is probably as good as it gets. What's the point of trying? Hopelessness doesn't scream, it shrinks. It shrinks your imagination. It shrinks your risk taking. It shrinks your willingness to invest in tomorrow. And when the future feels flat, motivation collapses. Because motivation requires the belief that effort leads somewhere. When that belief fades, so does energy. If you've stopped picturing a version of yourself that feels better, that's not laziness. That's a signal. 11. You feel disconnected from yourself. This one is hard to explain. It's not exactly sadness. It's not exactly anxiety. It's distance. Like you're watching your life instead of living it. You go through the motions. You say the right things. You respond appropriately. But internally, it feels like there's glass between you and the moment. You're present, but not fully here. You look in the mirror and feel slightly unfamiliar. You remember who you used to be and wonder where that version went. This is sometimes described as emotional detachment or mild dissociation, and it can happen when your nervous system has been under strain for too long. It's a protective response. When everything feels overwhelming, the brain sometimes turns the volume down on experience itself, but over time, that protection starts to feel like disconnection, and disconnection erodes identity. You don't just lose joy, you lose a sense of yourself. That's not something to brush off. 12. You've thought about disappearing. This is important, and we're going to talk about it calmly. Maybe you haven't thought about harming yourself. Maybe you would never act on anything, but you've imagined escape. You've imagined not existing for a while. You've imagined everything going quiet. No emails, no expectations, no pressure, just silence. These thoughts matter, even if they feel abstract, even if they feel fleeting, even if you tell yourself it's not that serious. When the idea of disappearing feels relieving, that means something feels too heavy to carry alone. And heaviness is not a moral failure. It's a signal that your system is overloaded. If you are experiencing thoughts of self harm or suicide, in the United States, you can call or text 988 for immediate support. That line exists for moments exactly like this. Reaching out isn't weakness, it isn't dramatic, it's self protection. And if you're outside the US, there are similar crisis resources available in most countries. You are not supposed to handle unbearable weight by yourself. Here's what I want you to understand: depression is not a personality flaw, it's not a lack of gratitude, it's not you being dramatic, it's not you not trying hard enough. It's a real condition that affects how your brain regulates energy, motivation, emotion, focused, hope. When those systems are dysregulated, life feels heavier. And because you might still be functioning, you convince yourself it's not serious enough. But pain doesn't need to be catastrophic to be valid. You don't have to hit rock bottom to deserve support. You don't have to stop functioning to justify help. You don't have to prove you're suffering enough. Depression is treatable. Therapy helps. Medication helps. Structured lifestyle changes help. Sleep stabilization helps. Reducing isolation helps. Talking honestly helps. And sometimes the first shift isn't a treatment plan, it's naming what's happening. Because what stays unnamed stays normalized. And what's normalized rarely gets addressed. Nothing changes if you keep telling yourself, it's not bad enough. Other people have it worse. I should be able to handle this. Minimizing your pain doesn't make you stronger, it makes you lonelier. Awareness is not a diagnosis, but it is a starting point. If you recognize yourself in this video, that doesn't automatically mean you have clinical depression, but it does mean something resonated. And resonance is information. Comment below which sign felt the most accurate for you, not as a label, but as a moment of honesty. If this helped you understand yourself differently, share it with someone who might silently relate. And subscribe for more psychology explained in real language. No shame, no stigma, no exaggeration. Because sometimes the most important shift isn't fixing everything at once. It's finally allowing yourself to see what you've been carrying and realizing you don't have to carry it alone. Don't forget subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications.